What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today on a very early. Oh, are we good? Nope. There. Oh. Are we frozen? Or. Okay. Wait. Nope. Yeah. Okay, we're good. That was a really weird sequence. But after another week, we are back. School has been the definition of a you-know-what. Okay? Am I good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay. 2018-19 NHL season. I'm a week into school, not even a week, it's only Thursday. It's a Thursday morning I'm recording this because this is the only time I've had. And there's a reason I hate school more than anything in the world, and right now it's kind of doing it to me. 2018-19, another year in which a team that's not expected to win the Stanley Cup wins the Stanley Cup. A year in which there are upsets galore. A year in which things that haven't been done in a very long time are done again. We'll start off with the Central Division. After winning the President's Trophy in 2017-18, Nashville falls back a bit. 47-29-6, 100 points, leads the Central Division. Winnipeg as well, 47-30-5, 99 points. Just like last year, they both dropped off 17 points exactly. St. Louis back in the playoffs after a year out is 45-28-9, 99 points. And what's memorable about St. Louis that regular season is that they were dead last in the beginning of January. They were the hottest team in the NHL going into those playoffs because they had been dead last and they had fought all the way back to make it to that point. Dallas back in the playoffs as well after a couple years out, 43-32-7 with 93 points. Colorado bringing up the rear at the wild card 2 spot, 38-30-14, 90 points. Chicago gets a little bit better at 36-34-12 with 84 points, still out of the playoffs. Minnesota 37-36-9, 83 points for them. See if I can shift this over a little bit. That works a little better. In the Pacific Division, the Western Conference is won by the all of a sudden living up to their potential Calgary Flames. 50-25-7, 107 points. That was the issue with Calgary. It never seemed like they were all clicking at once. This was the year that they all did click at once. San Jose, 46-27-9, 101 points. No one saw what was to come the next year. Vegas, after winning the Pacific last year, 43-32-7, 93 points. They tied basically for that last wild card spot. Arizona getting better, 39-35-8, 86 points. Vancouver getting better as well, 35-36-11, 81 points. Anaheim falls out of the playoffs at 35-37-10, 80 points. They would never be back. Edmonton, 35-38-9, 79 points. LA, 31-42-9, 71 points out of the playoffs and for a while now. Edmonton, that's interesting. So they don't make it McDavid's rookie year. They make it McDavid's second year. Everything's looking good. Back-to-back years out of the playoffs, and this is why Ken Holland was kind of getting a lot of crap taken from him. Even when they got back in the playoffs, Ken Holland was still being dished at because he couldn't manage the team correctly. Even though I thought overall he did a pretty good job. Yeah, the defense was lacking, but offense is the best defense. Said no one ever. Said people ever, but said no one really and truthfully. But anyway, the record-setting, I forgot to put the President's Trophy winning symbol here. The President's Trophy winning Tampa Bay Lightning, 62-16-4, 128 points. First time in my lifetime I'd seen a 60-win team. First time there had been a 60-win team since the 62-win Detroit Red Wings back in 95-96. And only third time in history a team had won 60 games. So yeah, Tampa, they were favored to win the Cup without question. Boston, 49-24-9, 107 points. Toronto, 46-28-8, 100 points. So just like 2018, only 3 teams make it in the Atlantic, and it's the same 3 teams in the same order. Montreal, 44-30-8, 96 points, just 2 points out of a playoff spot. Florida, 36-32-14, 86 points. Buffalo, 33-39-10, 76 points. The wheels finally start to fall off for Detroit consistently, 32-40-10, 74 points. And Ottawa, it's getting worse, 29-47-6, 64 points. That's a bottom out. They finish with the worst record in the league, yet they don't win the first overall pick. Washington leads the Metro Division because that's what they do. 48-26-8, 104 points. Back in the playoffs is the New York Islanders. Surprising everyone, since Tavares leaves New York, everyone's thinking, well, Islanders are going to suck forever now. And they actually get better without him. 48, 27, and 7, 103 points. Pittsburgh, 44, 26, and 12, 100 points. Another reason is because Barry Trotz leaves Washington and comes to New York to coach because Washington would have paid him. A decision they would regret. Carolina, for the first time in 10 years, is back in the playoffs. 46, 29, and 7, 99 points. Columbus, 47, 31, and 4, 98 points. Sure, they'll do nothing in this playoff. Philadelphia, because it's an odd year, what does that mean? You know it. It means they're out of the playoffs. 37, 37, and 8, 82 points. The Rangers, 32, 36, and 14, 78 points. And the Devils, 31, 41, and 10, 72 points. Yeah, Taylor Hall didn't drag them into a playoff spot like they did in 2018, as they're back out of the playoffs. And for New Jersey, they win the first overall pick again. So they get Heischer in 2017, and 2019, they get Jack Hughes. Two really good players in the playoffs. And these essential, so this is the playoffs known as the upset playoffs. It got so bad that the NHL said after the first round of the bracket challenge, they gave everyone a second chance bracket challenge because everyone was so screwed. All the number one seeds lose, including Central Team 1, Nashville, loses to Wildcard 1, Dallas in 6 games, and I remember heavily rooting for Dallas in that series. I remember every game. I remember I think I was on vacation for part of it. And I think Dallas won the clinching game when my last day of vacation. I was so happy. Winnipeg loses to St. Louis in 6. C3 takes down C2. And Winnipeg, that would be the only round they win for. Winnipeg would only win a round in 2018. They won 2 rounds. They wouldn't win another round for a good few years. And by a good few, I mean another 2 after this. So C3 versus Wildcard 1, that's already quite surprising. Pacific Team 1, Calgary, wins Game 1 against Colorado, and then Wildcard 2, Colorado wins 4 in a row. They beat Calgary in 5, and they move on. So both Wildcards move on. The Central Team 3 moves on. All you need to do, Vegas, is not blow a 3-1 series lead to San Jose. P2 San Jose comes back against Vegas, P3 Vegas, in a 7-game series overtime winner. Of course, Game 7, very controversial. Very horrible officiating that led to it being controversial. Although you don't give up a 3-0 lead on a 5-minute power play. But then again, you never get that 5-minute power play. So, take it whichever you like. Vegas fans will say one thing, San Jose fans will say another, and there'll be other fans in the middle that'll be like, either way. But that's a 7-game series that does not go Vegas' way. They do not return to the Cup final. In the East, Tampa Bay, Atlantic Team 1, the team that had won more games in this century than anyone else in a season, gets swept by Wildcard 2 Columbus, who had never won a playoff series. When this happened, it was the most insane thing in the world. People were going nuts. People were calling John Cooper to be fired. People said Tampa's never winning anything ever again for a year. And Columbus, and this was, everyone knew Columbus after the season. They were losing Panarin, they were losing Duchesne, they were losing Bobrovsky. So they were going all in, and they were down 3-0 in Game 1. They win that game, and they continue that momentum into the second round. A2 Boston versus A3 Toronto. You know how it ends. Boston beats Toronto in 7, and to this day, Toronto still has not beaten Boston. Washington, M1, loses to Wildcard 1 Carolina in 7 games. That's a double overtime thriller in Game 7. Washington was up in that series, and Carolina won 4 out of the last 5 to win that series, I remember. And then M2 versus M3, the Islanders versus the Penguins. And no one expected the Islanders to beat the Penguins. The Islanders swept the Penguins in 4. So, very underdog-like. The only predicted loss here was probably... Actually, I'd say in all of these series, I would have taken... Maybe Boston-Toronto would have taken Boston. Any other of these series, I would have taken the other team to win that lost. So in the West, for the second round, C3 St. Louis beats... No, that's not the second round. C3 St. Louis beats Wildcard 1 Dallas in 7 games. And I was upset about that. Dallas had a 3-2 series lead. They don't get it done in overtime. Pat Maroon gets the OT winner in Game 7. I really wanted Dallas to go on a run, and they'd go on a run the next year, but at that point, my like for Dallas kind of ended when they beat Vegas. Wildcard 2, Colorado so narrowly beats Pacific Team 2 San Jose in 7, and I was heavily rooting for Colorado. I wanted Dallas, Colorado in that conference final, and San Jose, very controversially again, mind you, this was a San Jose team that had they should have been out in 5 in the first round, yet they get all the way to Game 6 of the conference final, basically by getting every call possible handed to them. You saw it in the first round, you saw it in the second round, and you saw it in the third round as well, that the officiating tried to hand them the series as well. We'll get to that. In the second round, Columbus, a few things go the right way that don't. If some of the goals, if some of just the things that went right for Boston went right for Columbus, Columbus could have easily won this series. But Boston, A2, takes out wildcard 2 Columbus in 6, and it was a shame. Columbus, I remember, won Game 2, and I thought they had a chance. Boston, every bounce went their way after that. The Islanders then, after sweeping the Penguins, get swept by wildcard 1 Carolina in 4. And that we wouldn't be done with the sweeps yet. In the conference final, C3 St. Louis versus P2 San Jose, the same as the 2016 conference final. This time, it's St. Louis that comes out on top in 6 games. What's memorable about this series is the Timo Meier hand pass in overtime that led to Erik Karlsson scoring the OT winner. I believe it was in Game 3. And I don't know how that gets uncalled. Timo Meier, in front of the official, threw the puck to Erik Karlsson, who was wide open, shoots into the back of the net. Officials say, it's good. But that St. Louis didn't take very kindly to that and rattled off 3 straight wins after that. Boston and Carolina. So Carolina swept the Islanders, who swept Pittsburgh. Boston then sweeps the Hurricanes, who swept the Islanders, who swept Pittsburgh. So got a sweep train going there, 3 sweeps in a row. And that is a A2 over wildcard 1. Boston beats Carolina. So Boston returns to the final again. Not the first time in this series they've been here. St. Louis is the first time since 1970 they've been here, who they got swept by. Boston. So this is a rematch 49 years in the making. So C3 St. Louis versus A2 Boston. Here we go. Game 1, Boston wins 4-2 at home. In an overtime of Game 2, Carl Gunnarsson gets the winner for St. Louis to tie the series. We then go to St. Louis, where Boston wins 7-2 in Game 3. And I'm going to be honest, I really thought Boston was going to win after that. But St. Louis wins Game 4, 4-2. I'm thinking, okay, St. Louis has a chance here. I'm going to be honest, I was rooting for St. Louis in the series, the only time I've ever rooted for St. Louis. Game 5, St. Louis wins 2-1, and I thought they had it. I'm like, they're going home. It's Game 6. They got this. And then they lose 5-1 at home to Boston in Game 6. And it was at that point I threw my hands up and I said, all right, Boston, congratulations. St. Louis is not going to Boston and winning again. Especially after Game 5 ended so controversially with Tyler Bozak with the trip and all that. St. Louis got away with some stuff there. But in Game 7, 4-1 win for St. Louis. They went up 4-0. Boston gets 1 back. And they win their first ever Stanley Cup. 51, 52 years in the making, so very big win for them. Boston loses their second consecutive final. They've only won 1 out of 3 with the core they had then. And they haven't returned to the final since, although they've been in the playoffs every single year. Marchand leads the playoffs. 24 games, 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points, leads the Bruins. Ryan O'Reilly leads the Blues. 26 games, 8 goals, 15 assists, 23 points for him. He's your Conn Smythe winner. Rask goes 15-9 with a 2.02 goals against average and a .934 save percentage and 2 shutouts. But Boston fans would always blame it's Rask's fault. Never understood that. How you could blame Rask when he was saving your team most of the time. Bennington 16-10, 2.46 goals against average, .914 save percentage, 1 shutout. Those numbers don't scream sexy, but I honestly had Bennington as my Conn Smythe winner. Bennington came in as a rookie and dominated the league. Once he had an incredible record in the regular season, he came into the playoffs hot, and he continued that momentum all the way. What I thought was going to be a Conn Smythe, and he doesn't end up getting it, but he gets a Stanley Cup ring. He gets, I believe, all the rookie team, and since then he really has been able to rekindle that. The 2023 playoffs, I believe, he rekindled that a little bit. He went on that run before it was 2022 when he got hurt by Kadri, but because he was on a really good run there. But overall, Bennington, he's still a starting goaltender in the league, and he's still starting 5 years later. Awards. Art Ross goes to Nikita Kucherov, and these awards are iconic because Tampa won a lot of the awards, and they were not very happy accepting them on stage. 41 goals, 87 assists, 128 points to match the team's 128 points for Nikita Kucherov. That's the Art Ross to him. The Masterton goes to Robin Lehner of the New York Islanders. The Calder goes to Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. The Conn Smythe goes to Ryan O'Reilly of the St. Louis Blues. The Selke also goes to Ryan O'Reilly of the St. Louis Blues. The Hart goes to Nikita Kucherov of Tampa Bay. The Jack Adams goes to Barry Trotz of the Islanders. The Norris goes to 37-year-old Mark Giordano of the Calgary Flames. The Clancy goes to Jason Zucker of the Minnesota Wild. The Lady Bink to Alexander Barkov of Florida. The Lindsay to Nikita Kucherov. So this is Kucherov's big year, essentially. Even though he won the Art Ross this year, but not the Hart. The Messier goes to Wayne Simmons, who played for both Philadelphia and Nashville that year. The Rocket goes to Alexander Ovechkin, of course, with 51 goals, because that's what he does. The Vezina goes to Andrei Vasilevsky, who had a very memorable not happy face when he won it. 39, 10, and 4, 2.40 goals against average, 925 save percentage, and 6 shutouts. The Jennings goes to Robin Lehner of the Islanders, along with Thomas Greiss, who was the backup. In terms of All-Stars, first-team All-Stars, Ovechkin, McDavid, Kucherov, Giordano, Burns, Vasilevsky. So that's your first team. Your second team is Marchand, Crosby, Kane, Patrick Kane, Victor Hedman, John Carlson, Ben Bishop. Kane had 110 points that year. That was his best year, actually. And it's funny because people forget about that because it was his year in 2016, while in 2019 he had a better year. The rookie team, Brady Tkachuk, I think that's Brady, Elias Pettersson, Anthony Cirelli, Miro Heiskanen, Rasmus Dahlin, and Jordan Binnington. Pretty damn good rookie team right there. In terms of free agency, Tyler Ennis goes to Toronto, Pat Maroon goes to St. Louis, Dan Hamhuis to Nashville, Brooks Orpik goes to Washington, back to Washington for one more year. We'll get to that trade in a bit. Lucas Spisa goes to the Islanders, Blake Comeau to Dallas, Duclair goes to Columbus, Ian Cole to Colorado, Calvin DeHaan to Carolina, Jack Johnson to Pittsburgh, Kuhn Appel to the Islanders, Chris Kunitz to Chicago. It was weird seeing Chris Kunitz in a Chicago jersey. Cam Ward to Chicago. That was weird as well. Robin Lehner goes to the Islanders, Carter Rowney goes to Anaheim, Brian Gibbons goes to Anaheim, Brandon Manning goes to Chicago, Yaroslav Halak goes to Boston, James Neal to Calgary for a contract that would not be liked for a bit after that. Joachim Nordstrom goes to Boston, Valtteri Filppula goes to the Islanders, Van Riemsdyk goes back to Philadelphia, that's James. Luke Schenn goes to Anaheim, Thomas Vanek to Detroit, Jonathan Bernier to Detroit, Eric Greibo to New Jersey, Jared Chinordi to Nashville, Rocco Grimaldi to Nashville, Joel Hanley to Dallas, Austin Wagner to Boston. That's Austin Wagner, I think. Austin Wagner? Is that Austin Wagner? That's Chris Wagner, I think. Leo Komarov to the New York Islanders, Thomas Plekanec goes back to Montreal, Grabner goes to Arizona, Nick Holden to Vegas, Riley Nash to Columbus, Laurent Brossoit to Winnipeg. Of course, now we just announced he'd be having meniscus surgery so he'll be out for the first week of the season, I believe. Mrazek goes to Carolina, so there's your Blackhawks goaltending tandem this year, 5 years later. Brodziak to Edmonton, that's Derek Ryan goes to Calgary, Eric Fair to Minnesota, Tobias Reeder to Edmonton, Tyler Bozak to St. Louis, Paul Stastny to Vegas, Jay Beagle to Vancouver. This is an iconic offseason for Vancouver screwing up. Beagle was one of those. Nick Dowd to Washington, Roman Polak to Dallas, Perron goes back to St. Louis for a third time, Matt Hendricks to Minnesota, Tavares is the big fish, he goes to Toronto, Roussel goes to Vancouver and another screw-up by Jim Benning, that's John Moore to Boston, Greg Patterin to Minnesota, I pointed him out as a franchise mode legend, Carter Hutton to Buffalo, Matt Cullen goes to Pittsburgh, Scott Wedgwood to Buffalo, Michael Hutchinson to Florida, Austin Czarnik goes to Calgary, J.T. Brown to Minnesota, Adam Clendenning to Columbus, Matt Calvert to Colorado, Andrew Hammond to Minnesota, Alex Chason to Edmonton, Lee Stepniak to Boston, Brandon Hagel, after not signing refusing to sign with Buffalo, he signs with Chicago, although he doesn't play for 3 more years. Jason Garrison to Edmonton, and Troy Brouwer goes to Florida. So a lot of signings that year. Tavares is obviously the big fish, but there were some other names, Duclair in there. James Neal was a big name at the time. James Van Riemsdyk at the time. Those were really the big ones. Paul Stastny. And then a lot of veterans, a lot of overall veterans then in that free agency. All right, now we get on to the trades. We've already been going for 20 minutes. I'm a little tired because I did just wake up. So I also got school right after this, so got a lot to do today. May 3rd, 2018, Marcus Kruger and a third are traded to Arizona for Jordan Martinook and a fourth going to Carolina. Carolina, absolute steal in that trade. June 15th, 2018, Alex Galchenyuk goes to Arizona for Max Domi going to Montreal. June 19th, 2018, Mikhail Bodker and Jonathan Bergman, along with the sixth, go to Ottawa for Mike Hoffman, Phil Donaghy, and a fifth going to San Jose. And then Hoffman is then flipped on that same day with a seventh to Florida for a second, fourth, and a fifth to San Jose. So the Erik Karlsson, Mike Hoffman situation, that's kind of what the end result is of that. Hoffman gets dealt to San Jose, and then gets dealt to Florida. And of course now, I believe he's in San Jose. June 22nd, 2018, Philip Grubauer, Brooks Orpik are traded to Colorado. That's Orpik's rights for a second going to Washington. Colorado keeps Grubauer. They do not keep Orpik. He re-signs with Washington. June 23rd, 2018, Noah Hannafin and Elias Lindholm were traded to Calgary for Dougie Hamilton, Michael Furlan, and Adam Fox going to Carolina. You look back on this and probably say that's a pretty even trade because you got Lindholm at the time, you got Hannafin, Hamilton and Hannafin, and then Adam Fox, although he's a pretty good, but Carolina also gets an extra player, so you maybe probably argue Carolina won the deal. Except Fox never plays for Carolina. Hamilton leaves Carolina. Furland is an injury-riddled mess. Hannafin and Lindholm, they spend up until this year in Calgary, which they were both traded out. Lindholm to Vancouver and Hannafin to Vegas, and now Lindholm's signed in Boston. June 27, 2018, Connor Sherry and Matt Hunwick are traded to Buffalo for a conditional third or fourth, going to Pittsburgh. June 30th, 2018, in an absolute cap dump, Yoel Armia, Steve Mason, a fourth and a seventh go to Montreal for Simon Bourque going to Winnipeg. That's it. June 30th, that's the same one. July 1st, 2018, Ryan O'Reilly is traded to St. Louis for Patrick Berglund, Vladimir Zabotka, Tage Thompson, a conditional first and a second. Berglund plays one season in Buffalo and loses passion for the game. Zabotka played in the NHL. Didn't play much more after that. Tage Thompson, we know who he is. That conditional first or second, I want to say that became Isaac Rosen, but I'm not sure yet. He hasn't played much yet if it is. July 3rd, 2018, Matt Martin is traded to the Islanders for McAdam going to Toronto. That is a cap dump by Toronto. July 12th, 2018, Marian Hossa's contract, Vinny Hinostroza, Jordan Osterley, and a third go to Arizona for Marcus Kruger, Andrew Campbell, Mackenzie Entwistle, Jordan Maleta, a fifth, all going to Chicago. The only piece of value they get back there, Kruger finishes the season with them, but he doesn't play anymore in the NHL after that. And Mackenzie Entwistle stays on the team until this year. So Entwistle plays, but I'd have rather kept Hinostroza or Osterley, but that's all right. August 2nd, 2018, Jeff Skinner goes to Buffalo for Justin Pugh, I believe that's. I want to say no, that's not Justin Pugh. That's the guy that from the NFL who goes Justin Pugh straight off the couch. But someone Pugh, a second and a third and a sixth going to Carolina. So Skinner for 3 picks and a prospect, I assume. That prospect does not turn into anything. September 9th, 2018, Vegas makes a big move, and a move that they might regret. Max Pacioretty goes to Vegas for Thomas Tatar, good because he didn't work in their system, a second, and Nick Suzuki. Vegas screws up here because Montreal wanted Cody Glass. Vegas refused to give up Cody Glass, and they gave up Suzuki full-handedly. If they had Suzuki now, they'd never go after Eichel. Eichel, who knows where he ends up, because he would have been your number one center. September 11th, 2018, Adam McQuaid goes to the Rangers for Kampfer and a fourth and conditional seventh going to Boston. September 13th, 2018, Erik Karlsson, Francis Perron are traded to San Jose for Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, Rudolph Balcers, I think one of the greatest names in NHL history, and 2 conditional firsts and a second going to Ottawa. Yeah, they set up Ottawa with this because I'm pretty sure Batherson became one of those picks, and was it Jake Sanderson that became another? Yeah, so they get Norris here. Or is it, no, they get Stützle. That's who they get. Did they already have? Yeah, they get Stützle from one of these picks. And I want to say they get Sanderson or Batherson from the other. But Chris Tierney plays for them for a while. DeMello just left Ottawa, I believe, for Winnipeg. Balcers hasn't been in the NHL, but he was there until last year, I believe. So overall, this is a pretty big win for Ottawa, especially for what San Jose really does with Karlsson, and they don't make the playoffs after this year. October 11, 2018, Brett Kulak is traded to Montreal for Valiev Taramaya going to Calgary. Kulak, so Montreal wins that one going away. November 14th, 2018, Carl Hagelin goes to LA for Tanner Pearson going to Pittsburgh. Both players, I don't remember spending much time there in either place. November 16th, 2018, Ryan Strome, after a disaster in Edmonton, goes to the Rangers, where he actually plays good for Ryan Spooner going to Edmonton. November 22nd, 2019, Chris Weidman goes to Edmonton for a conditional fifth going to Ottawa. November 25th, 2018, Ryan Strome's brother, Dylan Strome, along with Brendan Perlini, go to Chicago for Nick Schmaltz going to Arizona. This is one of those where the Hawks, I'm not as mad about because they get someone back. It's not like when they gave away Hinostroza, they got really nothing. But Schmaltz was a good player with the Hawks. He and Kane had really good chemistry. And kind of with Panarin gone, if the Hawks wanted to get younger, they would have kept Schmaltz. They would have kept Hinostroza. They would have kept Panarin. They would have kept these younger guys and got moved on from their older guys, which they struggled to do, and by the time they did, it was too late. December 3rd, 2018, Josh Leva goes to Vancouver for Michael Carcone going to Toronto. I pointed that one out because Carcone is now in Arizona and is having a pretty good career. December 7th, 2018, Daniel Sprong goes to Anaheim for Marcus Pettersson going to Pittsburgh. December 29th, 2018, Michael Hutchinson goes to Toronto for a fifth going to Florida. December 30th, 2018, Drake Caggiula and Jason Garrison's contract go to Chicago for Brandon Manning. And a Norrell going to Edmonton. I believe that was Joakim Norrell. That kind of sounds familiar. January 11th, 2019. I can't even read my writing. This board was made out a year ago. Not a year ago, a week ago. Slater Cuckoo and a fifth go to Chicago for Jan Ruda, and a seventh going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Another move in which I'd say, why did we do that, to say the least? January 14th, 2019, Andrew Cogliano goes to Dallas for Devin Shore going to Anaheim. January 17th, 2019, Michael Del Zotto goes to Anaheim for Luke Shen and a 7th-round pick going to Vancouver. January 17th, 2018, Nino Niederreiter goes to Carolina for Victor Rask going to Minnesota. Rask never does anything in Minnesota, and then he spent some time in Seattle, never does anything, and now he's in Europe. So, other trades. Minnesota gets, because that's all I fit on the board. Brad Hunt and a 6th go to Minnesota for a 5th-round pick going to Vegas. January 24th, that was on January 21st. January 24th, Dominic Kubalik goes to Chicago for a 5th-round pick going to the LA Kings. Jamie Alexiak goes back to Dallas on January 28th for a conditional 4th going to Pittsburgh. Toronto makes a splash on January 28, 2019, sending Jake Muzzin to Toronto for Carl Grundstrom, Sean Durzi, and a 1st going to LA. Durzi is gone. Grundstrom, I honestly don't remember if he's still in the LA organization. And I don't remember what that 1st-round pick becomes, to be honest. February 1st, 2019, Pittsburgh gets Nick Bukestad and Jared McCann. Florida gets Derek Brassard, Riley Sheahan, a 2nd and 2 4ths. No one knew what Jared McCann was going to become until that first year he was in Seattle. Nashville gets Brian Boyle on February 6, 2019 for a 2nd going to New Jersey. That's a good value for Brian Boyle. Anything here? Montreal gets back Dale Weiss and Christian Folin for David Schlemko and Byron Froese going to Philadelphia on February 9th, 2019. Montreal gets Nate Thompson and a 5th going to themselves on February 11th. LA gets Calgary's 4th-round pick. February 15th, Philadelphia gets Cam Talbot. Edmonton gets Anthony Stolarz. Those are 2 goalies right now. February 16th, Edmonton then they take Ryan Spooner, who they got from the Rangers. They send him to Vancouver. They get Sam Gagner back because he always comes back to Edmonton, like Perron goes back to St. Louis on February 16th. February 18th, 2019, the Hawks make a bit of an oopsie. They trade Darren Radish to the New York Rangers for Peter Holland, and Peter Holland doesn't do anything in the NHL. Darren Radish, he's now a top 2 defenseman on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Boston does an all-in move on February 20th, 2019. They trade Ryan Donato, who's currently on the Hawks, a conditional fourth and or fifth going to Minnesota for Charlie Coyle going to Boston. And he's still there. February 21st, 2019, Washington trades a third and a conditional sixth for Carl Hagelin going to LA. Or no, they trade the third and the sixth for Hagelin, who's going back to Washington. The picks go to LA. Columbus does their all-in move. They get Matt Duchene and Julius Bergman for Vitaly Abramov, Jonathan Davidson, a conditional first in 2019, 20, or 2021. Or is that 2 first-round picks? I believe that's only 1 first-round pick. But yeah, so Columbus, they know they're going all in this year. They give away Duchene. They get Duchene, and Ottawa, who's selling, is more than happy to take their picks. Nothing there. February 22nd, 2019, Nick Jensen and a fifth go to Washington for Madison Bowie and a second going to Detroit. Bowie never really developed at the NHL level. Dallas gets Ben Lovejoy on February 23rd. New Jersey gets Connor Carrick and a third. Lovejoy didn't play much longer. Columbus in another move, they get Ryan Dzingel from Ottawa for a seventh going to, along with a seventh going to Columbus. Ottawa gets Anthony Duclair and 2 seconds going to Ottawa. That's a lot for Ryan Dzingel, I will say. Dallas makes a splash as well on February 23rd. They get Matt Zuccarello for a conditional first-round pick or a second-round pick, along with a conditional first or conditional third. These trades are weird with conditions. Buffalo gets Brandon Montour on February 24th for Brendan Gooley and a conditional first going to Anaheim. So Montour, one of those players that goes to Buffalo that ends up winning a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. San Jose gets Gustav Nyquist on February 25th for a conditional second going to Detroit. Keith Kincaid goes to Columbus as goaltending depth on February 25th, and a fifth-round pick goes to New Jersey. Winnipeg gets Kevin Hayes on February 25th for Brendan Lemieux, and a first-round pick going to the Rangers. Derek Brassard goes to Colorado, along with a sixth for a third going to Florida. Adam McQuaid goes to Columbus for a Julius Bergman, a fourth and a seventh going to the Rangers. Michael Granlund goes to Nashville for Kevin Fiala. That's a one-for-one deal. Fiala goes to Minnesota. Due to their cap reasons, they don't sign him. He ends up in LA. Nashville gets Mikael Granlund, who was there until they dumped his contract off to Pittsburgh. February 25th, 2019, Vegas doesn't want to miss all these big moves being made by playoff teams. So let's see, who's made a move so far? Washington gets Hagelin. Let's see, Columbus has made their moves. Tampa, Boston, Toronto, San Jose. Dallas has made them. St. Louis, Winnipeg, Nashville. All these teams are making big moves. And Vegas goes out and gets Mark Stone and Tobias Lidberg for Eric Brandstrom, who is another one of their first-round picks, Oscar Lindbergh, and Dallas' second-round pick going to Ottawa. So Ottawa is selling off everything. They sell off Duchene, they sell off Dzingel, they sell off Stone, and they're in a great tire fire right now. On that same day, Nashville also gets Wayne Simmons for Ryan Hartman and a conditional third going to Philadelphia. That one is absolutely bizarre, to say the least, in my opinion. I don't even remember that deal, to be honest. St. Louis gets Michael Del Zotto. Anaheim gets a sixth-round pick. Boston gets Marcus Johansson. New Jersey gets a second and a fourth. Matt Hendricks goes to Winnipeg for a seventh-round pick going to Minnesota. Eric Gabranson goes to Pittsburgh for Tanner Pearson going to Vancouver. Nathan Beaulieu goes to Winnipeg for a sixth-round pick going to Buffalo. And that would be pretty much it. After the season ended, Adam Fox would be to go to the Rangers because he refused to play with Carolina like he refused to play with Calgary for a second-round pick going to Carolina. And I believe that's another conditional second as well. But, yeah, everything else would happen the next season, such as Kevin Hayes going to Philadelphia for a fifth, Matt Niskanen going to Philadelphia for Rocco Gudis going to Washington, Connor Engren goes to Nashville for a seventh, Tampa Bay, Chicago gets Oli Mata for Dominic Cahoon in a fifth, going to Pittsburgh, Trouba goes to the Rangers for Neil Pionk and a first going to Winnipeg, Justin Braun goes to Philadelphia for a second and a third going to San Jose. So that would conclude the 2018-19 NHL season. 35 minutes of me talking, and I got school soon, so I hope I don't have to talk a lot in class. So I'm going to end it off here. And again, my biggest apologies for not continuing with videos. I've just been so busy, and I've not had any time at all. I'm hoping this weekend I could catch up on some uploads, get a few done in pre-record so I can upload them during the week, because I'm just having so little time right now, and it seems that, and this is the first week of school, I'm not even having work to do, just commuting back and forth and all that. It's just been a pain. So anyway, if you made it all the way through here, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I thank you all so much for your support over these last about 2 years and 2 months now. It's been a great ride. I don't plan on ending anytime soon, but with me going in college and my major, it obviously gets a lot to build up, and I apologize for that, but it's also out of my control. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.